Hey y'all, welcome back to Fruit Friday. I'm your host, Maddie or Yachai and Tai, and this week we're talking about something that I think everyone who has moved abroad has experienced, but no one really likes to talk about, which is dealing with feelings of loneliness and also how to find and create community while you're living abroad or just living in a new place. But first, this is Fruit Friday, of course, so let's get into our fruit. So this week we have Dragonfruit, and I know that Dragonfruit gets a lot of hate. I know a lot of people say Dragonfruit has no flavor, it's not good, and I'm here to tell you that you owe an apology to Dragonfruit because it does have flavor and it is good, and you have probably just been eating it wrong. I think the mistake that people make with Dragonfruit is they eat it when it's room temperature, and they buy the Dragonfruit and they cut it open right on the spot, and they eat it without letting it get sweet. So the trick with dragon fruit is you actually need to buy it, you need to put it in the fridge, and then you need to forget about it. And when I say forget about it, I mean forget about it. Leave it there for 2 weeks, forget that it's even in there, and then when you find it, you're going to be asking yourself, oh my god, how long has this dragon fruit been in here? Is it still good to eat? And that, my friends, that is when you cut it open and you enjoy an ice cold, super sweet, delicious dragon fruit. I bought this dragon fruit over a week ago because I wanted to have it at its peak for this episode. I mean it when I say this is one of the most refreshing fruits there is. It's got the texture of a kiwi, but not quite as strong of a flavor. It's just really cold and really sweet and juicy, and I find it delicious. And I highly recommend that if you don't like dragon fruit, you give it another try. Growing up in Midwest America, not only did I not ever try a lot of these tropical fruits, I had no idea how these things grew. And so I want to tell you about the very first time I saw dragon fruit growing because my mind was blown. It was a couple of weeks after I had moved to Samui, and I didn't really have friends or community at that time, so I spent a lot of my free time just driving around on back roads of the island, kind of getting a lay of the land and seeing what I could discover. And one day, I drove past this giant cactus. It was all by itself on the side of the road, and at the very end of one of these dangly cactus arms was a bright pink dragon fruit. And my mind was blown because I had no idea that fruit could grow from cacti. And I know this is a little bit of a stretch, but this was the best way I could segue into today's topic. So without further ado, let's get into it.
It's Fruit Friday, yeah, let's take a bite. Life's sweet and sour, take it slice by slice. Human heart and wisdom, served just right. Laughing, learning, loving too. Fruit Friday's here with the juice for you.
So before we jump into the topic of loneliness, let's talk a little bit about being alone, because those are two different things, and I think it is very important to be able to be alone and to enjoy your own company. And when you're first starting out, being alone is kind of the best thing ever. I've experienced this in multiple ways. I think the first time that I experienced this was when I came out of a long-term relationship after being in a relationship for 6 years. It was just pure bliss. I could do whatever I wanted, go wherever I wanted, talk to whoever I wanted, spend my time how I wanted without having to worry about someone else, consider someone else, ask someone else what they wanted to do. It was just complete freedom, complete bliss, and I was so far away from feelings of loneliness because I was so excited to be alone. And the same thing happened when I went traveling for the first time by myself. I was fresh out of college, as I had mentioned in previous episodes. I had been working full-time. I was a full-time student, and my jobs were pretty demanding of my time and energy because I was teaching swim lessons, I was a teaching assistant for my undergraduate courses, and I was coaching volleyball. So all of these things were really demanding that I prioritize the needs of somebody else, which is fine. And it was fun and I really enjoyed it. But when I went solo traveling, I went to Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore, and just being able to do whatever I want, see whatever I want, eat whatever I want, plan my own schedule completely around my own interests without having to even consider what someone else wanted to do or what someone else needed me to do. It was incredible. And that feeling can last for a really long time. That feeling of freedom, that feeling of opportunity and possibility, and being able to choose exactly what you want, that is kind of the best part about being alone. And for a lot of people and for a long time, you can really lean into this feeling and it's fun. But I think inevitably, no matter who you are, no matter where you have moved to, if you move somewhere by yourself, you will eventually have to confront feelings of loneliness. And this can hit in different times and in different ways, but I think bottom line, we all go through it, and it's not always the easiest thing to navigate because loneliness doesn't feel great. Loneliness is hard. And so that's what I want to talk about today. First of all, don't feel like you've failed or you've done something wrong if you're feeling lonely. Humans are social beings. We are social creatures. We have evolved to exist in social scenarios, and we're meant to have relationships with people. And so it's normal if you feel like you're lacking in the relationship department, whether it be romantic relationship, friendship, family relationships, whatever. It's normal to feel lonely. And that's not just in your head, but that's in our biology. Like, we're meant to be social creatures. We're meant to interact with others. And so when you start to feel loneliness creep in, it's not a bad thing. It's a normal thing. So just listen to it. And there are definitely moments where it's really, really hard because loneliness hits you like a truck. And if you don't know how to deal with it, it can be challenging. So let's talk about it. I think there are certain moments where loneliness feels the most heavy, and I'm going to tell you about the moments that I've experienced so that maybe you can relate to them or you can anticipate them if you're going through something similar. First of all, just the initial shock of being in a new place, that can feel really lonely. And again, for some people, this is exciting, but at the same time, there is an element of loneliness that is sometimes impossible to shake because when you live in a place, you are known, you are recognizable, you recognize other people. And when you move to a new place, all of that goes away. So it goes beyond just moving far away from your family and friends and moving away from your job or your routines. You move away from everything that is familiar to you, and also you become unfamiliar to everyone around you. So what I mean by that is you're no longer a familiar face in the coffee shop that you go to regularly. You're no longer a familiar face at the grocery store. You're no longer going to bump into someone that you know on the street. I mean, the world is small, maybe you will, but most likely you won't. And when you move to a new place, especially a new country, this giant blanket of unfamiliarity, walking into every shop and not seeing someone that you recognize, going to a new gym, going to a new salon, going to new community events and not knowing anyone. Again, while this is really exciting, it can also feel really lonely, and it's intimidating, and it's important to anticipate that, because when you anticipate it and you know it's going to happen, I think you can manage it a little bit better. Other moments that I find that loneliness really hits hard are things like holidays or big events where your family and friends are gathering at home. It's really hard to deal with the FOMO because you know that if you were there, you would be part of this thing that would be really fun and it'd be full of connection, and then instead you're missing out on it all. And the FOMO is real, and the loneliness is real in those moments. I think another moment similar to that feels really lonely is the moment after you hang up from a really good phone call with family or friends back home. I know I've experienced this several times where I FaceTime my family, I FaceTime a friend, and we sit and we chat for hours, and we're laughing and we're talking and we're enjoying so much, just catching up. And that moment after you hang up the phone, where the screen goes black and the room is silent again, that can feel really lonely. And that moment can hurt a little bit because you feel the distance in between you. And it's like that cord that was there connecting you is just severed so sharply. And it's a reminder how far you are away from home, and that can be hard. I think a third moment where you feel really lonely is times where you're struggling, times where maybe you're dealing with something challenging, maybe you're going through something, and you don't have the community around you to lean on like you normally would. And this can be hard because while you can call, while you can text, sometimes it just is comforting to have someone nearby you, someone that you can hug, someone that you can just hold space with. And when you don't have friends and you don't have community that you feel comfortable doing that with, that can be really lonely too. And I think because of moments like these, we feel motivated to find community. And it's important that we do find community because you don't want to be lonely in all of those moments. You want to have people around you that you can trust and that you love and that make you feel seen and heard and supported. Because as I said earlier, humans are social beings. We crave social connection. We rely on social connection to survive. And so it's important that when you move to a new place, when you move abroad, you make an effort to find friends and to find communities so that you can once again feel like you belong. Now, finding and creating community can take a long time, and I want to talk more about this later in the episode, but before we dive into that, let's just talk about some of the things you can do to immediately ease those feelings of loneliness while you're in the process of finding and creating community. The first one, and this is probably my best tip, is turn your FOMO into FEMO, FEMO. Your fear of missing out needs to become the freedom to explore more opportunities. Yes, I made that up. Yes, you can steal it, but don't capitalize on it or I'll be mad. No, I'm kidding. When you feel like you're missing out on something, you feel like other people are doing something fun without you and you're not able to experience it, don't sit and dwell on the fact that you're not there. Rejoice in the fact that you have put yourself in a position to have the freedom to explore more opportunities. Don't think about it as a loss as much as you think about it as an exchange. Instead of saying, I'm missing out or I've lost the opportunity to do this, think of it as, because I'm not there, I get to do this instead. Or I have the opportunity to have this experience over this one. When you think about it in that way, it feels a little less sad and a little bit more cool, because you are actually having an opportunity to do something that all these other people are missing out on. So in a way, you're both experiencing FOMO. They might just not know what they're missing out on because they're not there. As you know, I moved to Thailand in October, which meant I had to miss Christmas a few months after I'd left. And this was the first time that I experienced FOMO because I thought all of my family are getting together. They're all spending time doing all the things that I love around the holidays, and I don't get to be there for that. And instead of having FOMO and being sad, I decided to book a trip to Bali and I went scuba diving on Christmas because instead of sitting and thinking about all the things I was missing out on, I decided to take advantage of my freedom and my ability to explore a new adventure opportunity. And it was super fun and it was something different and exciting and new, which allowed me to not think so much about everything that I was missing at home. I think in situations like these, especially around holidays or special events, it can be really hard to not feel FOMO. So doing something different, doing something fun to fill that time is a great way to kind of tamp down the FOMO so you don't feel it so much. Another great way is to recreate some of your favorite traditions or your things about the holiday in the place that you're in. So a couple Christmases ago, again, I was in Thailand for Christmas. I decided not to go home because I had just been home earlier that summer. And I invited all my friends over and we did some of the things that I love to do with my family on Christmas. So I just recreated those traditions, shared those pieces of my culture, if you will, with friends. Cooked a big dinner, we baked cookies, we decorated them, we played games together, we drank hot chocolate, we watched Christmas movies, and it was just a fun way to still have that experience and have that kind of warm and cozy feeling without being at home with my family doing the things that I've always done growing up. So yeah, those are my two best tips for dealing with FOMO. Turn it into FEMO, do something fun and exciting, or try to recreate your favorite parts of the experience in the place that you are and share it with other people. And also, don't be afraid to be a little bit sad, okay? Like I said, it's normal to feel lonely in those moments. It's normal to feel like you're missing out and to be bummed about that. And that's just part of the life. That's part of moving abroad. That's part of living far away from home. You don't have to not feel sad about it. You just have to accept that sadness is one of the prices that you pay for living the life that you've chosen to live. And we all do that. Now, before we jump into making friends and finding community, I want to talk a little bit about the people that you meet when you move to a new place, especially when you move to a new country, because I think while this might be slightly different from place to place, a lot of these themes are overarching and they happen all over the world. First of all, especially when you're living in a place that is more of a travel destination, you are going to meet travelers. And travelers are fun. Travelers are great because they're here on holiday. They're here for a good time. They're really down to do anything. And their energy is really up because they're probably not working. They're taking time off. So they're just kind of able to be their best self or their less stressed self, if you will. Sometimes the bad behavior comes out then, but that's another episode. You meet the travelers. They're fun. You can do a lot of things with them, but they leave. And that's just the reality. You might meet really cool people. They come, they go, they're in, they're out. And that can be tricky when you are someone who is living in a place and looking for friends and community to last a long time, because someone coming on a 2-week trip is probably not going to be your best friend. But that doesn't mean you don't have to talk to them or you shouldn't talk to them. Just know that that's part of the reality. Then you have the non-travelers. So first of all, we have the locals. We have the people who are born in the area, have been in the area their whole life. Making friends with local people is great. I've talked in previous episodes about cultural integration and the benefits of having local friends and connections to local communities, because it really helps you to integrate. It helps you to feel a sense of community and belonging, and it teaches you a lot about the local people and the local culture. So highly recommend maintaining some sort of relationship and getting to know the locals, even if it's not best friends, because obviously there are barriers, cultural barriers, language barriers, difficulties to getting super close with local communities, especially, again, if you can't speak the same language, if you can't connect on certain things, but make an effort to befriend the locals. And then we have the expat community, the immigrant community. You know how I feel about the word expat, but I'm just going to say it for familiarity's sake. I think there are 3 types of expats that you meet. Let's call them the 3 R's. First, we have the runners. We have the people who are running from something. They are running from their problems. They are running from their responsibilities, and they are kind of like a tornado of chaos. They will come in, they will vomit all their problems on you, and they will cause chaos in your life. And these are not necessarily people you want to be friends with. And let me tell you, they're pretty easy to spot, okay? They're usually one problem after another. Things are never going right for them. They're always the victim in their situation, and it is what it is. You meet these people, they think they can outrun whatever it is they're running from. They can't. My advice is to let them deal with their own things and not get too involved in that. Second, sometimes, and overlapping in this case, are the rejects. If you watch White Lotus, they called them the losers back home. And again, sorry, but this is a real thing. It is the people who couldn't find friends, couldn't find community, didn't really feel accepted in their home country, wherever they are. I don't think I have to do too much explaining on this topic. Again, I think it's pretty obvious when you meet these people. They usually have kind of a sour attitude. They usually fail to integrate into the local culture. They're usually not having a lot of great things to say, and just being in their company is not a pleasant experience. So again, people, hopefully you're not this person, but if you meet them, I recommend not getting too close. That's the second R. The third R is the real ones. These are the people that you want to meet, the people you want to make friends with, the like-minded people that move to this place with the intention of having a good life, having a balanced life, having a better life. And they also are looking for community. They also are looking for friends. And hopefully they are someone that you can connect with in a lot of genuine and authentic ways. And just a little bit of a warning, okay? And I think we all know this, stranger danger is a real thing. But when you meet people abroad or meet just strangers in a new place where there's no way to really background check or fact check people, you only know what people tell you, for better or for worse, and they might be lying to you. And I think I have a pretty good judge of character, and usually I get a really good read on first impressions with people, but I want to tell you a story about a time I was completely bamboozled by someone that I had met and befriended, because I just want you to know that it can happen, and it can really hit you by surprise sometimes. Now, I'll try to make this story as quick as possible, but it's difficult because there are a lot of crazy details and I don't want to bore you with them or make you confused, but hang with me. Also, content warning, I'm going to mention some domestic violence and death in the next 5 minutes, so if that's something you don't want to hear, skip it and we'll regroup again shortly. So I was teaching year 3 in Hua Hin, and in the classroom next to me was another year 3 teacher. She introduced herself to me, said she was the same age as me, had also moved to Thailand by herself. So naturally we had a few points of connection and we became friends. And as we started to hang out, as we started to spend more time together, she started to open up to me about her tragic life story. And I took pity on her because I was like, you have been through so much. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. And you've come so far, and I'm very proud of who you've become. So basically she told me that when she was born, her mom left her dad and moved to another country. And while she was young, her mom had a new boyfriend, and she ended up watching her mother be beat to death by this new boyfriend. And then she became kind of orphaned, was being taken care of by an auntie until her estranged father found her and adopted her and brought her to the country that he was living in. And then she grew up kind of in the dad's family, but she was not accepted by the stepmom. So she was kind of, given the cold shoulder in that relationship. And eventually her dad was tragically killed in a car accident, and she was once again orphaned. So then she kind of ended up running away from stepmom and got into drugs, was kind of on the streets for a while, and then got her life together, moved to Thailand, became a teacher, wanted to start fresh. And as you can imagine, I was like, oh my God, trauma alert, you've been through so much. Obviously, you're a little bit weird. But, again, I believed her. I took pity on her. We became friends. We spent time together. And I started to kind of see and understand why she was the way that she was. After about a year living in Thailand, she decided that she was going to move home, and that's just part of the deal here. People come, people go. So I was like, okay, so sad to see you go, I'll miss you. And I spent the last couple days helping her go shopping for a few things that she wanted. She really wanted these Nike shoes and she really wanted to go to this place in Bangkok. And so I spent the last few days in Bangkok with her and brought her to the airport. And then she had kind of this big fiasco at the airport where she couldn't get on her flight and something happened and she missed a flight and she needed to rebook a ticket, and I ended up borrowing her a couple $100, which is not something I usually do. I'm really usually not someone who borrows people money, but again, I felt bad for her in this situation. I was like, you know what, let me just buy your new ticket, get you home, and then you can pay me back later. So she was really thankful. I paid for her ticket. She got home, whatever. We kind of stayed in touch, not too much. But then when I moved to Samui, I was broke. I had spent all my money on going home to the US, coming back for the Phuket sandbox, moving everything from Hua Hin to Samui, paying a deposit on my house, etc. So I was out of money. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, would you mind sending me the money that you owe me? I'm like kind of strapped for cash right now. And she did. And that was great. And a couple months later, I get a text from her, or from who I thought was her, from her Instagram account saying, this is so-and-so's cousin. She's in the hospital. She needs to have surgery. And I just wanted to give you an update. I wanted to let you know. So I start to get worried because I'm like, oh my God, this girl, she's in the hospital. She doesn't really have any family. She's alone. Is she okay? And so I'm texting the cousin back and forth for almost a week, trying to get updates about the surgery and what's going on. And there was, fears around she doesn't have insurance, so she needs this heart operation. Oh, then when she went in for the heart operation, she had a seizure on the table, so then they couldn't do the operation, but instead they wanted to do a brain operation because there was some sort of an issue with her brain causing the seizures, which she was epileptic, and I did witness her have a seizure, so this all checked out, to me. But I was really stressed out because I'm like, this girl has no family. I don't know who to contact. I can't really be there. So I start looking up like flights to this place to go see if she's okay and trying to find any contact person that I can to go check on her, because again, I'm just getting updates through Instagram through her cousin via her phone, saying that she's been in a coma for a week and blah, blah, blah. So eventually I get a hold of her sister, not a real sister, but someone that she had mentioned being a close friend with before, that she had spent several years living with. And I get a hold of this sister. I explain the situation to her. She has no idea. She's like, oh my God, thank you for telling me. She tries to get involved. So she starts reaching out to people that she knows, and we're all trying to figure out what's going on and where she is and how we can help. And through this experience, some strange details started to be uncovered. So the sister told me, she was like, it's so weird. Through all of this, I haven't heard anything from Brian. And I'm like, who's Brian? And she's like, Brian is this friend's boyfriend, her boyfriend from Thailand. Surely you know Brian because you live in Thailand. And I was like, she never had a boyfriend. I don't know a guy named Brian. And she was like, you know Brian? Like, yeah, Brian. He's the guy who bought her those shoes, the shoes that I bought her. Not that I bought her, but the shoes that she bought with me on her last night in Thailand. And so the sister starts telling me all these stories about Brian and starts sending me screenshots of messages between Brian and my friend. And I'm getting so confused because I'm like, who's Brian? I've never met this guy. And also the stories that she's telling you about Brian, like the trips that they went on together and the things that he bought her, were all things that I had done with her. So I'm like, wait, am I Brian? Is she like twisting the relationship that I had with her into like this relationship with a partner, with a boyfriend? I'm like, that's weird. So I'm telling the sister, like, none of that is true, girl. I don't know what you're talking about. So that's when we started raising flags for the first time. We were like, okay, she's faked a boyfriend. These conversations are coming from a person who doesn't exist, which we later found out were from her old phone number. So she had been swapping a SIM card in and out of her phone to text both herself and the sister. I feel like the story's getting complicated. I'm not doing a good job of explaining it. But basically, this girl had fabricated conversations with her boyfriend to take screenshots, to send to friends, to tell them about this boy. She had making up this whole narrative about relationship that she had in Thailand, blah, blah, blah. So that was weird. And then we started to get in contact with old friends of this girl who was in a coma. And stories started to come in about how she had lied previously about having cancer, about needing operations, about being really sick, just to kind of gain attention and to get this reassurance that she was loved and cared for. And Basically, long story short, I ended up in a group message with 7 of these girls that I had never met who had all had ties to this girl at some point in their lives. And we figured out it was all a lie. All of this story about her being in the hospital was a hoax. And she had been caught because we saw a picture in an Instagram story of her at a 10K. She had just run a 10K and was totally fine and normal. But at the time, she had been in a coma and texting, texting me from her Instagram account saying she was her cousin, trying to get sympathy. I don't know. So we all called her out on it. She tried to deny it at first. She ended up coming out and being like, you know what, I'm really sorry. I've lied to you. I have this disorder where I lie about having medical conditions to try to prove to myself that people love me and people care about me. Crazy, okay? And it was just all too much. And mind you, I'm in Thailand by myself. Not by myself, but like I'm on my own here doing my own thing while also trying to deal with this. And it was just a shitstorm. And I was stressed out and I was worried. And I was like, why am I putting so much time and effort and care into this person who's just like completely taken me for a ride? So I just had to cut her off. I was like, you know what? Thank you for the apology. I can see that you clearly have issues. I hope you get better. I don't want to be involved. And so that was the end of that. Wild ride, wild story, but just kind of goes to show you don't really know who anyone is. And even if they tell you one thing, it might not be true. And I don't say that to scare you. And I don't say that to mean like, don't trust anything anyone tells you, but just to be aware that it happens. There are weirdos out there. There are people who will tell you stories and tell themselves stories, and you never really know. So even if you're like me and you think you have a good judge of someone's character, even if you think you can tell who someone is, exercise a little caution, okay? Don't believe everything that you hear, and give people a chance to show you who they really are, because eventually they do. And when they show you who they are, believe them and move forward. But moving on. Let's talk about finding community. So I think there are different types of communities that you find when you live abroad or when you're moving to a new place, and each kind of community serves its own purpose. A quote that I really like that one of my best friends told me years and years ago that I've never forgotten is, people come into your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And so you either have something to learn, something to gain from this community or this relationship. They are in your life for a particular season, a particular chapter, or they're there in your lifetime. And I think this absolutely holds true across all relationships, but especially in communities abroad. Some communities are very circumstantial. You are connected with a group of people because you all share something in common. Usually the commonality is you're all in this place, which is far away from your home. But these types of people in these communities you might not be friends with were you in your home country. I think this is common among a lot of expats. They meet people who they share something with. Maybe it's someone from your home country or someone from a particular background, and you connect because of that, but you wouldn't necessarily be friends with them had you met in your home country. And the thing about these friendships is they're great and they can make you feel a sense of belonging, but they tend to fizzle out quickly as soon as something changes. So when one of you moves away, when something happens, when priorities shift, these friendships disappear quickly. And that's okay. They were there for a season, they were there for a reason, but they are not someone that you have to hold on to forever. Some of the communities that you find will be much more intentional, and the relationships you form will be much deeper. And these types of communities I find are usually formed based on shared values, shared experiences, and you genuinely kind of love and care for this person and you would be friends with them regardless of where in the world you met them. And these are the kinds of relationships and communities that hold stronger. And even if things change slightly, even if someone moves away, even if priorities have to change, you still find a way to maintain a friendship because you actually genuinely care about the person more than just like you care about having a relationship with someone, if that makes sense. But I think in any case, it's really important to ride the waves of these relationships. Every community has its peak. Every community has its fall, especially when you're living abroad, especially among expat communities. Nothing lasts forever. Okay, people always come, people always go. There will always be times where you feel like it's the peak of the community, everything is great, you're able to connect with so many people and spend so much time together and really enjoy your time. And then there will be times where it falls off and you're not spending as much time together, you don't feel as close and connected. And this wave is, again, part of the life. It's something that you have to experience and you have to ride it. So I've shared a lot online about how I have amazing friends and amazing community, and that is all true, but I want you to know that I am 7 years into living in Thailand, living away from home, and this community did not find me right away. It took years. So let's walk through my journey. In my first year of living in Thailand, I had what I would call kind of a hodgepodge of friends. I had a couple friends from the school that I was working at. I was friends with a few of my colleagues, and we would get together for meals, maybe go out for drinks once in a while, or do something together on a whim. But it didn't feel like really deep friendship. And then I had the friends that I'd mentioned in previous episodes that I had met, Ruby chasing her to the toilet in the bar, and Choco, who I had met because she was on a date with this other guy. And I had these little pockets of friends forming, but it didn't feel like a unified community. It just felt like I had different friends for different things, and that was fine, and I was happy with that. And I would say this kind of friendship structure, this community structure, if you will, lasted for about 2 years because that was the time that I was living in Hua Hin. And then I moved to Samui and I kind of had to start this process over again. So a lot of my friends had dispersed. I moved to Samui on my own, as you know. And then I was kind of back to this friends here and there, no really unified community sense. And this is 3 years into living in Thailand, mind you. So again, when I moved to Samui, I had a couple friends from work. I had a couple friends that had moved here. Choco ended up moving here, and her boyfriend Ollie, who I was also friends with. And we kind of found pockets of friends going to pub quiz, going to the bars to play pool, playing volleyball on the beach. But again, it didn't really feel like we had a unified sense of community as much as it felt like I had a bunch of different friends from a bunch of different places. And it wasn't until probably the 4th year of living here that I really started to feel that community build up around me, because we started to kind of bridge those gaps between the crew that played volleyball together and the crew that went to pub quiz and the crew that liked to play pool in the evenings. And once we started to get to know each other and we started to see each other in these different environments, that is when a sense of community started to form. And again, this took me 4 years to find my first feeling of community. Like I could walk into a place, see a familiar face, know that I belong somewhere, and also be known by other people. And even then, that community was great and it was awesome, and I still feel that I'm a part of it, but it wasn't quite the community that I was looking for, and I was still hungry for more. I think around the 5th year of living in Thailand, I really set the intention to find a community of women because I wanted closer girlfriends. I wanted people that I could relate to, that I could open up to, that I could really trust, and that would inspire me to keep growing and evolving and learning and just feel, loved and supported and held. And no hate to the community that I found, through volleyball, through pub quiz, through that, but it was kind of like a casual community. It's the community that you don't mind seeing on the weekends. You get together for a good time, but it wasn't filled with people that I would necessarily turn to for support if I needed it or ask for big favors like that. So year 5 is when I really started to find a community of girls that I have now. So yeah, all in all, it took me almost 5 years to find a community that I really feel like I belong in and I really feel like I thrive in. And I think that is normal. I think it takes a very long time to find and create community. And I think that if you're struggling to feel like you belong in a place, if you're struggling to find your people, give it time. Know that it's not going to happen overnight, and know that you're going to see waves and evolutions. And I could talk forever about the types of communities I've found and the people I've met in my journey in Thailand, but I want to transition a little bit and talk about my 4 best tips for finding and creating community while you're living abroad. Tip number 1 is to know yourself and know what you're looking for. I talked earlier about the people you meet. If you come in and you are running from something or you are lost, don't expect that you are just going to stumble on a group of people that are going to help you find yourself, okay? If you come in like that, it's a hopeless mission, okay? You need to know who you are as a person, what you value, what you're looking for in a friendship, and be solid in that. And at the same time, you also have to be willing to explore new opportunities, new relationships, and to expand and to evolve your idea of what friendship looks like and what you're looking for. So it's kind of a balance there, but I think the most important is setting clear intentions. I think what really changed things for me was when I set the intention of saying, I want a community of women who support me and make me feel seen and loved and safe. And setting that intention and looking for that and saying yes to opportunities that were going to open doors to providing me that made all the difference in my quest to find community. So know who you are, know what you want. Tip number 2 is be vulnerable. Vulnerability breeds connection, and I think that is really scary for a lot of people because we don't like to be vulnerable, especially when we're in an unfamiliar place with people that we don't know. Being vulnerable is kind of the last thing that you want to do because we don't want to be hurt, we don't want to be taken advantage of. But if you are not willing and able to be vulnerable and to open up and to show your true self to others, you can never expect to be known, and you can never expect to have genuine, true friendships and connections. So while you do have to, be careful and look out for yourself, it's really important to show up authentically. It's really important to show up with vulnerability and to hold space for other people's vulnerability and share the not so great sides about yourself. Share the things that you're struggling with. Talk through your challenges. And I'm not saying to vomit your problems onto someone else and to expect, a therapy session from someone, but open up about the things that you struggle with. Open up about your challenges. And trauma bonding is a real thing. I'm not saying it's the healthiest way to start a relationship, but being able to talk about things that are difficult and to support people through that is what really creates strong relationships. So don't let the fear of knowing that someone is going to move away and that relationships aren't going to last forever shallow your friendships, okay? If you want deep relationships with people, you have to be able to dig deep in yourself. My third tip is to be a villager. I think everyone wants a village, everyone wants a community, but not everyone wants to show up as a villager. And this starts with you. You cannot expect other people to show up and to be there for you in hard times if you're not willing to do the same for them. Offer to help people with tasks that might inconvenience you, like driving someone to the airport, helping them move into a new apartment, helping them to unpack or to, do whatever it is they need to do that isn't necessarily a fun task, but it's something that is helpful. Be a listening ear if someone's going through something and they just need someone to talk to. You don't have to give advice. You don't have to tell them what you think of the situation. Just be there to hold space for them when they need to talk. Because as I said, these real authentic relationships are built in times of vulnerability, okay? It's great to make friends and have fun memories together, but the things that really bring people together and hold people together are these moments that they were there for each other when things were difficult in some way. The best friends that I have made living abroad have stemmed from interactions that were me being there for them in a time that was really challenging. One of my best friends, I met her while she was going through a breakup with an abusive partner. Another friend was there for her when her sister was going through a difficult divorce. And being with someone in these times and showing up for them as a friend in these moments where they really need it is the basis of friendship and authentic connection. And that doesn't mean that our whole relationship is just based around me being supportive of them. Of course not. But it's what started the relationship. And after I was there for them in those moments, they showed up for me in moments where I needed them. And the relationship built from there. And from that trust and that understanding and that care for one another, we were also able to create all of these beautiful and fun and exciting memories and just get to know each other in more lighthearted scenarios and spend time together. But again, the vulnerability and the moments where things weren't as pretty and glamorous are where those real connections formed. So be a villager, be vulnerable. My fourth tip is to create space for community. I think having community and building community takes time and effort, and this effort is ongoing. It doesn't just happen once and then it's done. You have to continue to create the space for it to thrive. And again, this is something that you sometimes can find, but more often it has to start with you. You have to set the intention, you have to create the space for it. So what I mean by that is host events, gather people at your home, invite them over for dinner, for a game night, for a movie night, for a party, whatever it is. Create a space for community to gather and then see what blossoms from there. Make plans. If there's something that you've been wanting to check out or something you've been wanting to do, set a time and a date that you're going to do it and invite other people to join you. Offer to help people with things. If someone mentions that they're moving, offer to help move their house. If someone mentions that they have family coming, offer to help them make a plan or show them around or, extend invites to things that you think might be interesting to them and their guests. Being intentional about creating space for community to thrive is one of the best ways to ensure that you have it and you find it and you maintain it living abroad or living anywhere really. And if you don't find the community that you're looking for, create it. Be the source of that community. You plant the seeds and water them and then watch your community grow. So we've talked a lot today about friendships, about communities, and overcoming feelings of loneliness when you move abroad. So now it's time to leave you with a little fruit for thought. Now, before I give you the fruit for this week, I want to share a little bit of I don't want to say it's a poem, but just a piece of advice that I wrote for myself following my first solo trip back when I was 21, because I was such a wise 21-year-old, and I love these words and I still come back to them a lot, and I want to share them with you too. Whenever I travel, I seem to think that it's easier to live out of my suitcase rather than to unpack my things. Maybe it's because I'm less likely to lose something, or maybe it's because there's comfort in knowing I could leave quickly if I needed to. But when I don't unpack, I don't allow myself to authentically experience the place that I'm in. I don't allow myself to belong. So literally, unpacking means taking my things out of my bag, putting my clothes in a drawer, putting my soap in the bathroom. Figuratively, it means unpacking the emotional baggage that I brought and leaving my preconceived notions in the room when I set out for new experiences. Because by unpacking, you create space in your bag for new things, perhaps for things that are better suited for you than what you originally brought. You also create space to carry something for someone else, which, as you know, is planting the seed for connection. They say that home is where your heart is, and for me, I think my heart is big enough to leave a little piece behind wherever I go. So be willing to unpack. No matter where you go, be willing to unpack, and the world will always feel like your home. So my fruit for thought for you this week: what can you do to unpack? Just a little bit. Physically, figuratively, how can you unpack in this new place that you're in so that you can feel more at home? I want you to think about that this week. Thank you so much for watching Fruit Friday episode 6. Again, I am your host, Maddie, or Yajai in Thai. If you like this podcast, please rate it 5 stars, share it with a friend, subscribe. It is the best way to keep Fruit Friday going, to find us new audiences. And I super appreciate the support, really. It means the world to me, and I'm so thankful to have you tuning in and listening. It means so much. Don't forget to come back and join me next week, because we're going to be talking about dating abroad and all the highs and lows that come with that. Hot topic, I know. But for now, I'll let you go. So happy Friday.
Take one last bite of that juicy slice. Fruit for thought, sounding oh so nice. Human heart of wisdom, served just right. Laughing, learning, loving too. Fruit Friday's here with the juice for you.